This is Locked On Sports Atlanta, and it's time for the Atlanta Football Party, only on Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Hey, welcome into the Atlanta Football Party. Welcome. This is your home for the best Falcons football talk. It's local insight you can't get anywhere else but right here at Locked On. I'm your host, Tenitra Batiste. Alongside with me are Jarvis Davis, Aaron Freeman, and Tori McElhaney. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On NFL for $20 off your first purchase. Again, that's Locked On NFL for $20 off the first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. And so what that typically looks like is not Tori, because Tori buys her Swiftie tickets on time. That's me, who doesn't buy her tickets on time for Beyonce or any NFL game that she doesn't cover. But anyway, guys, at first I was thinking, I don't know if it's a party this week, but I'm thinking it may not be a party like it was last week, but we still have some things to celebrate, including 93, which we'll talk about and we'll celebrate him later. But first, guys, we've got to talk about what went right and what didn't go so well in the Falcons' 24-16 loss to the Commanders on Sunday. So let's just get right into it with the top three takeaways with JD, Free, and Tori. Jarvis, we're going to start with you. You say that the honeymoon phase is over.
Yes, because here's the thing. The offense and defense are married, right? They're in a nice situation. And it's been a really nice story to see how this defense has come about, right? Like, they are legitimate. There's no, we don't know, we got to see. Well, this group that they put together, that Terry Fontenot put together via free agency with these veterans and everything like that, it's working. Like, yeah, the sack numbers, I wish they would be a little bit higher than what they are. But, yeah, they are actually getting the job done. And I think that once you start to look at how this game played out, you're talking about 193 total yards, and an NFL team was able to win a game. Like, that is unheard of. So when you talk about that when you think about like how that works out, it's just super frustrating. And I think that the offense is young and they got a lot of talent, and they at some point, maybe not this year, they're going to be putting up a lot of points. They can average 30 points a game. I really feel like they have those type of capabilities. But for this year in 2023, I feel like the honeymoon phase is kind of waning a little bit, because you start to hear guys talking about, there were the turnover differential. It was 3-0. Now that's probably going to lead to those guys saying, oh yeah, here's how we can, start to get some turnovers to maybe kind of offset that. And then we start doing that, you start going outside the system, because Ryan Nielsen has implemented a really good system. So when you start thinking about going outside of what you all do and what your responsibilities are trying to make a play, that's when those big plays happen. And I think that the offense is going to have to get their life together, because, like you said, at some point, I always refer back to Arthur Smith talking about those angry vets. They're going to start pointing the finger, and they're going to want to go to counseling, because this is not something that you won't have to play around with, because you only can say he's a young quarterback for so long before those guys say, hey, man, you need to start playing better because we're doing our jobs.
Right, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. Like you said, that we can't kind of talk about, Desmond Ridder, he's young, so we just need to give him an opportunity. But on the same token, we'll talk a little bit more in the deep dive about how you also can't lay this entire loss at his feet either. Speaking of that, Aaron, you talked about the fact that you wanted to know what's going on the ground.
Yeah, Jarvis is talking about, this offense getting together, and, they did finish with over 100 yards rushing against Washington. But it just feels like now 4 weeks in a row that this running game has not really gotten going. And that was sort of their foundation last year, that everything started with having one of the top rushing attacks in the league. And, it's not a bad run game by any means. I think they're still currently ranked 11th in the NFL. So most teams would take that as a win. But with the Falcons and the way that Arthur Smith's offense has been structured, with the play action, with the reliance on the run game, it feels like this offense needs to be a top 5 rushing attack or a top 3 rushing attack for this offense to be able to put their best foot forward. And it just felt like yesterday, with Desmond Ridder dropping back 50 times and throwing the ball 47 times, that a lot of that had to do with the fact that they just could not get more than seemingly 2 yards whenever they decided to run the ball for a large portion of the game. And so I think a lot of these issues, and I think that things will run a lot smoother for this offense moving forward if they can get this run game back to being that sort of dominant unit that we have grown accustomed over the last year plus of seeing.
And one of the things, Aaron, that I think I saw, and it's just a question of mine, we can actually talk about it again in the deep dive, but it was kind of the utilization of each of those running backs, particularly, I think with Bijan Robinson. I feel like he's a guy who, if you didn't go to him early, you could still go to him often late. He can just pick up the rhythm of a game. But I also feel like Tyler Algier might be a running back who, if you insert him in early, he'll kind of get a rhythm, if you will, and then he'll just kind of go off. And I feel like I just want to see him a little bit more in, I'll call it, with situational football. There were just some times where I felt like Tyler Algier should have had the ball in his hands as opposed to it being in Desmond Ridder's hand in a drop back situation. But yeah, that's one of the things I'm wondering, like, maybe how can Tyler Algier be one of the catalysts to getting this ground game back online? But Tori, you also talked about one of the things that was glaringly obvious yesterday. And it's like, yeah, you could say, give me the damn ball. But in this case, it's like, no, don't give the damn ball away.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting to me, kind of, just hearing people talk. And we literally just got up from Arthur Smith's press conference on Monday, and that was such a big point of emphasis that he was making, is the fact that in the last few games, this is not just a Sunday problem. In the last few games, the Falcons have lost the turnover battle. I believe in the last 3 games, and they are one of 3 in those 3 games, they have given up the ball 8 times. And they haven't notched a turnover since Jesse Bates, I believe, in the 3rd quarter of the Detroit game.
Yes.
So the only defender that has even a turnover to his name right now is Jesse Bates. And that happened 3 games ago. So that all has to change. And for this team, especially because you go back to the point that Jarvis was making, where it's like this, if you look at the stat sheet and you look at how much production this Falcons team had, especially offensively, in comparison to what the defense was able to hold this Commanders offense to,
Yes.
if you look at that, you cover up turnovers, you cover up the score.
Mm-hmm.
Stat sheet looks like Atlanta ran away with the game, but they didn't, because they turned the ball over 3 different times.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that even in the win against the Texans, and they fumbled the ball twice and they lose possession, those drives, you felt really good about those drives until the turnover happened. And I think that for the Falcons to be where they need to be, I mean, numbers and stats, I think, speak for themselves when it comes to turnovers, that the teams that lose the turnover battle oftentimes lose the game itself. And we have seen that happen for this team in the last 3 games, with the outlier being the Texans game. So this is an area they have to get better in, and they have to get better in fast.
And I think one of the things I think about there, Tori, as well, as if you're going to lose a turnover battle, you better be able to turn it up somewhere, right? And there were so many turnovers and so many missed opportunities that it was almost like, okay, this is a hill too high to climb, right? Because you think about the defense, and the defense held the Commanders scoreless, essentially. And the reason I say they held them scoreless in the second half is because, yes, the Commanders did get a touchdown in that 3rd quarter, but where'd that touchdown come from? It came from a turnover. So it was almost like the defense is on their heels before they can even get themselves in position to actually make an impact or make a bigger impact. But once they did, what happened? Commanders scoreless. But like you guys said, the turnovers that you're making on the offensive side of the ball, I mean, you can only overcome them so much. And then I also thought about this, Tori, just to kind of add to things that we know that Arthur Smith absolutely abhors, and that is he really doesn't like penalties. And while you can look at the score sheet and say, oh, it's just 4 penalties and 31 yards, it's when those penalties happen. That was such a critical time.
Yeah, I'll add too, it's the type of penalties too, because Arthur Smith has said time and time again, it's like, if there's a holding call, I understand in the heat of the moment, those are a little touch and go, but it's the procedural penalties, it's the delay of games, it's the illegal shifts, it's things that you as an offense can control.
Right.
And those are the penalties that he, and I think just overall as an offensive play caller, those are the ones that keep you up at night.
Yeah, and I was thinking the same thing. Like I could literally see him grimace. And this goes back to the preseason for the last couple of years. And I can remember even his first preseason with us, right? That's the thing that he talked about, like those pre-snap penalties, things that are like football 101, especially for a veteran or a unit that's been together for at this point a couple of years now. Those are just things that he doesn't want to see, and obviously we don't want to see either. But yeah, those are, kind of those high level things that we talk about where this team is still 3-3 and they've gotten through. That's good. You get through the first third of the season at 500. But if you want to do better in the second third of the season and for the rest of the season, and B, want to do better against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which is going to be such a pivotal matchup next weekend, you're going to have to clean up some of these things. And we're going to talk about it a little bit more. I want to ask these guys what they're confident about, what they're concerned about. But first, Jarvis is going to tell us about game time and prize picks.
Folks, my name is Jarvis Davis, if you didn't know. Yes, this is Jarvis Davis for Game Time. I'm speaking in the third person. What is going on on a Monday? How about this, guys? If you're trying to find a situation where you're trying to get some tickets, right? Game Time is the place that you need to go because buying tickets to your favorite events should not be stressful. I can't stress to you enough. Game Time is a fast and easy way to buy tickets for all sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. If your significant other's been begging you to take you to that Taylor Swift concert and you're gonna forego paying your mortgage this week, go ahead and do it. I promise you, Game Time has got you covered. They got killer deals on last minute tickets and their best price guarantee. You can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun, all the fun you're about to have. I promise you, she gonna thank you after that concert. I promise you, whatever it is. So snag the tickets without stress with Game Time. And download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Yes, $20 off. Locked On NFL is the code. So, again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. I also got to be able to tell you about Prize Picks, guys. Here's the thing. You know how sometimes you go to these apps and everything, and you got to go to the fantasy football leagues and all that stuff, and you got to wait till 16 weeks in to collect some money? Prize Picks has got you covered. PrizePicks.com/LockedOnNFL is where you need to go because I've been having the most fun, winning up to 25 times my money. You just select 2 or more players, guys, pick more or less on their projected stacks, and place your entry. It's that simple. I can make my picks and submit my entry in less than 60 seconds. And then Prize Picks even offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. We're going up. Each Tuesday, Prize Pick discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value. So here's what you need to do. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Yes, that's it. You get $100. Up to $100 in a match deposit. I'm sorry. Yes, go do that right now. PrizePicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code LockedOnNFL because Prize Picks makes daily fantasy sports easy.
All right, guys. So despite an outcome that maybe none of us wanted to see, and none of us really thought would happen. I think we all thought that this was not just a winnable game, but it would be a W for the Falcons. Didn't quite turn out that way with the 24-16 final. But let's start here because let's just be honest. This is a game that was lost on some level in all phases, whether that's on the field, on the sidelines, all of the above. So when you look at it, I'm sure there are still areas of confidence, but I also want to talk to you guys about anything that you're concerned with long term. That said, there were a number of questionable play calls. Some were scratching their heads at not the second time, but the first time the 2-point conversion was called, meaning before the infraction. Questionable substitutions, miscommunications. A lot of people said, hey, that lands at the feet of Arthur Smith and this coaching staff because these guys, they're going to be where they are or where we want them to be or need them to be based on what it is that you guys are doing to get them started. Where they execute, that's a different story. We'll talk about execution in a second. But first, are you concerned about this resulting, the play calling, the questionable plays, the miscommunication, the substitutions? Are you concerned about that resulting in this loss in what really was a winnable game, especially as you look at them going into the second third of the season?
For me, I compartmentalize some of those things that you mentioned. Like I'll separate the play. I'll take that play calling out because I don't have any issues with it because there were key moments in that game that Arthur Smith dialed up. Desmond Ridder just wasn't able to execute for whatever reason. My concern comes in when you're talking about guys subbing in and subbing out and guys needing a break. We want to get this guy in. We don't know what type of personnel we're supposed to have in here, or if that guy's not supposed to be in here. That's the stuff when I started getting concerned, because that's supposed to be like clockwork at this point. You're talking about being 3 years in. We're 3 years in into this regime, right? And you have a quarterback who's been in your system for 2 years. Those are some of the things that don't need to happen at this point. And it hasn't happened for the most part since they've been in here. But like, you just hopefully that this is an aberration and not something that, hey, we can start to get used to seeing like that, because that's sloppy football. This was a sloppy football game at the end of the day. And I'm not used to seeing that with an under Arthur Smith coach team. So that's why I hope that, my concern is there. But I think it can definitely be, eased. My concern can be eased next week going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It's a divisional opponent. You're going out on the road, and they're coming off a loss as well. So those are some of the things that I feel like that can ease my concern. But, yeah, seeing that on Sunday, it was just like that was awful football. I mean, just plain and simple.
Yeah. What I will say is, piggybacking on what Jarvis said, because we've seen 40 games of Arthur Smith, and this has been a non-issue in like the first 39. That's why I'm not necessarily concerned about it, because I just want to I think this is more of a one-off type of situation. So if it, as kind of what Jarvis said, if it becomes an issue in the future, then it'll be a lot more concerning to me then. But as of right now, I feel like these are issues, like a lot of the procedural stuff, the delay of game stuff. Those are things that can be, relatively speaking, easily fixed, right? Like blocking Vita Vea is not something that you can just easily fix in practice. Right. But I do feel like in practice you can fix the delay of game stuff.
Yeah. I agree too. I mean, I don't really have any, I feel like y'all hit it from every angle. I don't really have much to add, because I definitely agree with you that if you go down to Tampa, and I mean, the Falcons need to play better on the road anyways, but if you can go down to Tampa and show that these issues in miscommunication, the subbing in and out, the getting the play call in, I believe when I was looking back at the I'm not even going to go into the whole like nitty gritty and moving things around in terms of that final drive. But when you go and you look at it, it's like, no, y'all are exactly right. This is not something that has happened for this team at all in the time that Arthur Smith has been here. And I think he has said that. He said it, we haven't made a habit of making these mistakes, but we did today.
Yeah.
If he said that one time, he said it 7 times in his post-game press conference. So I do think that that's a point of emphasis moving forward. It's like, don't let this happen again. Like we're not going to let it happen again.
Exactly. Now, speaking of what you don't want to see happen again, Tori, after playing his best game as a Falcon, going 28 of 37, 329 yards and 1 passing touchdown in last week's win against the Texans, Desmond Ridder may have played arguably his worst game, going 28 of 47 for 307 yards, 2 touchdowns and 3 picks. Are you confident that Des is still trending in the right direction overall, or are you concerned that he might have taken a little step back?
It's funny because I'm confident that the pass game has gotten better for the Falcons.
Yes.
Even in the context of these interceptions, I think what we were able to see, the connection that he was able to demonstrate with Kyle Pitts, Drake London, I think that has been evident when Arthur Smith talks about seeing improvement in the pass game. I do believe that to be the case in the last 2 games, but it's in those critical moments, in the critical errors, the taking the sack, that was like a loss of 11 yards and the Falcons had to punt on after third down. Like it was, and it's the interceptions. It's in taking care of the ball and making the right decisions. And so for that reason, it's like it goes back to the same thing of like what we were talking about with Desmond Ridder last week. Like, could I be confident or concerned with him coming off of his best game to date last week? It's like, how much of that game do you kind of take into consideration going into this game? How much of this game do you take into consideration going into the next game to kind of build this portfolio of who we believe him to be? And I will say, Arthur Smith did say when we talked to him earlier today, he was like, I don't know if I've met a more accountable and honest person in his own critique of himself as I have with Desmond Ridder. I don't know if I've coached a player who's been as honest as he is. And I think that's a good sign too, because again, we're talking about this being kind of, if we're going to go with it, still in his rookie year.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's still a lot to learn. And something else Arthur Smith added was that the mistakes that Des is making are mistakes that don't happen twice. It's when he's making mistakes, it's but for different reasons and for it experiencing different things for the first time.
Yeah.
So I am still in the period of kind of giving grace, but it's at what point do you say that I can't give any more? And I think that's the question that you weigh at this point.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of where I am as well. For me, I feel like he's taken a slight step back, but I think that's because you regress to the mean when you're under pressure. Most people do. So whatever it is that your bad habits are, as soon as something goes awry, the average person is just going to go back to their old bad habits. That's what I saw a lot of with him, with I could have picked him off. He was telegraphing the throw that easily. I could have picked him off. So that's one of, those bad habits that you just got to get away from, because we know you've shown that you can find your second and if not your third read. So then at least look the part and make these guys think for a few seconds. And I think the other piece there is this. I love the fact that he had the connectivity that he did with Kyle Pitts. That always makes me excited, because I've been, excited about what KP can do ever since he got drafted. And then kind of looking at him being maybe more 100% KP. And I'll be honest, Tori, yesterday might've been the first game I said, oh yeah, that's 100% KP. He's back. I don't care if it was just 4 catches, 43 yards. That just looked like KP to me. And then I liked the fact that Drake London did what you drafted him for. Even if your quarterback isn't perfect, spot on, he can go up and get it. He can go up and do the things that kind of, how do we say, covers a multitude of sins. But I'm a little bit
37 balls.
Yes, exactly. He can get those. There it is. Yes, he can. Right. So, that's the good part. But it was just a little concerning, because it's okay, you are going up against pretty darn strong defensive front and what the Bucs bring to the table. And Tori, I'm going to throw this in a little bit. This is like a sidebar, guys, as well.
Hey, T, can I add something to what Tori said earlier?
Sure.
Just want to add, I'm confident that Ridder can continue to progress only if this offense starts to be more balanced, because you can't live and die throwing the ball 35 to 40 sometimes a game with a guy who we've deemed that he's still in his rookie year as a quarterback in the NFL, because he had questions coming into the NFL, that's why he was drafted in the 3rd round. So I think that given Arthur Smith's vision for this offense does not involve him throwing the ball that much. And I think that Arthur Smith understands that. So I feel like I'm confident things can continue to go well for Desmond Ridder as long as Road Ridder doesn't come out, and they're able to run the football. I really feel like that's the piece that I feel I'm confident in, if they can get back to being balanced. And you only be balanced if you have success running the football.
I will add to that think about how many loaded boxes this offense has had to face over the last 4 weeks. Yeah. These defenses are saying, beat us by throwing the ball. And I think as someone watching this offense and as an outsider, as these defenses are looking at this offense, they really are. They're we know y'all can run the ball, so we're going to sell out to stop the run. Mm-hmm. So that in and of itself creates this unbalanced look, because they are having to throw the ball. These defenses are forcing him to throw the ball. So how do you counteract that? It's success in the pass game. You have to see success and growth in the pass game to kind of alleviate some of that pressure on the run game that these defenses are actively putting on, almost play in and play out.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think he may not be the runner that Justin Fields is. He may not be the runner that Jalen Hurts is, but he can run a bit. So maybe if you give him a few RPOs or give him some, run type plays that are designed specifically for him, that can at least give him an opportunity to contribute to the game in a positive way without necessarily having to utilize his arm. And then that would also, to some degree, keep that defense on the other side, that opponent's defense a little bit more honest than we've been seeing them be for the last couple of weeks. But guys, there are so many things that we could be confident or concerned about. And we're going to talk a little bit more about it in a second through rapid fire. But first, Jarvis is going to tell us about LinkedIn and how, if you guys want to have your career go to the next level, that's the way to do it.
Guys, listen up. Jarvis Davis here for LinkedIn. These days, every potential hire can feel like high stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available? That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. How about that? In today's world of inflation, something being offered for free. Come on, y'all. Like, what other better deal that you're going to find like that? So, also, LinkedIn has simple tools like screening questions to make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience, so you can quickly prioritize who you like to interview and hire. If I'm going on there, I know LinkedIn is going to be able to get me the best candidate because, hey, it's free. And a lot of people trust LinkedIn. I trust LinkedIn because, you get reached out to from time to time. Hey, are you interested in this type of deal? Are you interested in working in this field? Yes. You get those things right there on LinkedIn Jobs. So it's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs the number one in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. So here's what I want you to do, guys. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidate you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for the free ski. Yes, you don't have to pay. I'm telling y'all guys, this is the best deal you need to go to. So terms and conditions apply.
Now, the one job we will not be posting is a job fulfilling or being a backfill for 93, because I think we like 93 having a job with this Atlanta Falcons team, right? So listen, we got to give love to Calais Campbell before we wrap up. Of course, our rapid fire, who got next? We're going to talk about that. But Calais Campbell is that next, right? From what he's done on the field to what he's done off the field, he's had such an incredible impact on the Falcons. And we finally got to see it come to fruition with that 100th sack of his career. I mean, Aaron, to see the excitement of Grady Jarrett and so many of his teammates, to me, that was the most exciting part of the entire game. The fact that they were loving on him in such a way. And he's only been, with the franchise this half or a third of this season, and yet he's getting all that love. But it doesn't stop there for him, because it never has. He donated a total of $100,000 to help teachers in 4 cities he's played in. Of course, 25 here, Baltimore, Jacksonville, and Phoenix. And they're going to be able to give $500 in supplies, $500 for other resources for individual classrooms. And Tori, I want to hear you talk about it as well, because I know you did a great article on that. But Aaron, kind of what was your reaction when it's like, whew, he's finally got it, we can celebrate?
Yeah. I've been waiting for that moment for about a month, and it's been like, is this going to be the week he gets the 100
You and
sack?
Calais both.
Yeah.
Sure.
And it's like, wanted to see the Dirty Bird, him bust out the Dirty Bird. And he got it this week, and it was great to see him get that and play, I think, a really outstanding game on Sunday, in addition to that, and sort of to not only be celebrated here and then do the things that he's done off the field, as a former Walter Payton Man of the Year honor. And that, that was a big thing that I think led to him coming here, because of that connection that him and Arthur Blank made, because of Arthur Blank's philanthropy and Calais Campbell and sort of that sort of thing. So I'll just let Tori talk more about that. But
yeah, no. It's really cool. This whole 100 sack give back is what I think they're calling it. And Tenitra kind of laid out the nuts and bolts of it. $100,000 in total to 100 teachers across Phoenix, Jacksonville, Atlanta, and Baltimore.
Yes.
With an additional 20,000 to teachers in Miami and Denver. So this is quite a big celebration for, I think, Calais Campbell, and something that I really hope doesn't happen is that this gets lost in the loss, because this is not something that I feel like obviously it's not something that happens every day. It's not something that happens to every pass rusher. This is a pretty amazing moment, I think, for Calais Campbell, and also just what he's doing, I think, in the community and kind of, I mean, personally, both of my parents are teachers. I know how much money they spend to get their classrooms ready. I mean, schools don't pay, the school system doesn't pay for them for supplies. So everything in their classroom they pay for. It comes out of their paycheck. And so the fact that he's giving $500 to so many teachers across the country, I think it's a big moment, I think, for Calais, obviously, but for him to give back in this way, it's really something special.
Yeah, I'll never forget when it was against in the home opener. I mean, in the opener at home against the Carolina Panthers. Like I was walking past, kind of talking to some of the other people cover the team and everything, and he was right before he was about to get ready to go in, he said to his family, "All right, about to go get this 100." So I know he has been thinking about getting his dog and getting out of the way, because at the end of the day, it's going to be in your mind, like a real human, any real human being is going to be thinking about it consistently. And it's kind of hard to put in the back of your mind because it's such a big feat, like 100 sacks in the NFL. That is ridiculous. We be crying for people that get 6 sacks in a season.
Right, because you think about 21 players since 1982 have achieved that. And then if you take it, because that's when it was officially, started to be something that the NFL recorded. But even if you go back to 1960, it's only 42.
Right.
That's still mind blowing to think that it's been 60. Okay, Jarvis, do that math. But it's been like, it's been like 63 years. It's been 63 years and only a handful. That's a handful of guys that have done that. Yeah, that is powerful stuff. And like you said, Tori, just putting an imprint everywhere he's gone, on the field and off the field. He's just classy. I mean, it's just a class act.
Yeah, it's funny too. I believe that he has sacked 50 different quarterbacks en route to those 100 sacks. We posted about it on Atlanta Falcons, but it was like 2 Joes, 2 Toms, 3 Sams, 3 guys that have different versions of the name Matt, and of course 1 Michael Vick. And so it's like there are just so many, and that to hear that too, how many different quarterbacks over the span of 15 years in the league. Wild, absolutely wild.
Yeah, somebody had it scrolling, and Tori, I think you're absolutely right. When I saw the scrolling of the names, I was like, this is mind blowing. Like, this is like he's a low key baddie, right? Because he's not like going to be the grunge guy or the one that's kind of like, but you put him on that field, and man, he can turn some things. Listen, I know we only got 60 seconds. So I'm going to throw to each of you guys and give you about 20 or so seconds. Give me something that you want to see, either a person from the staff or from this team overall, next week when these guys go down to Tampa.
I'll go with Drew Dalman versus Vita Vea. I want to see someone block Vita Vea for once in my lifetime. It's on Drew Dalman. Just
one time.
Just one time.
Do your one job.
I want to see Arnie Abuke to get in the game more. Like, we saw some production. Like, 3rd long. We don't have to have Zoe in there. Like, let's see 17. Let's give him some playing time. He might be productive.
I'll go with, we've been talking about this whole time, but cleanliness, communication, all of those things, that needs to be better in Tampa, and it starts at the top. And I think Arthur Smith has said that. And so let's go with that.
Yes. And I will next to godliness, Tori.
Exactly. I'm going to go with cosigns on all 3 of what you guys said. But of course, shout out to my guy, AK, because he's the only player that I think since I've been covering the Falcons that I actually got right on my draft board. All right. On that note, thank you guys so much for stopping by. We appreciate you joining the Atlanta Football Party. As always, your home for the best Falcons football talk. Now, don't forget, tomorrow, come right back because we're going to have some dogs talk on the Atlanta Football Party. So we will see you guys tomorrow.